it is, because, I mean, this is one of those things that's a holdover from the mob that later gets absorbed by intelligence agencies because they see its utility. You know?
So if we see someone rich, famous,
knowing
successful,
who, knowing information, the blackmail information, the CIA, that's intelligence to them. We want to gather intelligence.
Sam is 3 months away.
Yes, it really is that serious. Situations like this don't just come out of nowhere. They have roots that go back a long time. Methods once used by organized crime didn't fade away. Instead, they were adopted by intelligence agencies that recognized how useful they could be. When someone is rich, famous, and powerful, any private or damaging...
Do you feel nervous about the bar?
Yeah, I'm not ready yet. I am feeling a little bit overwhelmed.
What?
Someone from prison was like, this person put a hit out on your life.
That's better than the dog ate my...
When it came to Maxwell, it was about the idea, right, they would bring these girls in, and then they would have them recruit other girls, and that was kind of the network that was being built up. From a prosecutorial point of view, from a legal point of view...
Information about them becomes extremely valuable. To intelligence agencies, that kind of information isn't just gossip. It's leverage, something they actively seek out and store. Now, things take a more intense turn. An anonymous survivor connected to Jeffrey Epstein reportedly approached the FBI with a sealed audio recording. According to the claim, that recording includes a conversation between Kim Kardashian and Epstein, along with details that could connect her to some of the most serious...
Legal point of view, somebody's looking at this and saying, wait a minute, I'm looking at these filings and they're identifying certain people or they're redacting certain other people, and they say, there's not enough evidence to charge this person, or limited evidence regarding involvement. What does that mean? So,
oh, I know. And sometimes I feel like what he's really trying, like he was like, oh, I'm $53 million in debt, or, that whole thing. And I'm like...
Accusations tied to him. Right now, the FBI is said to have that file and is testing it to confirm whether it is real or not. Despite how serious this sounds, there has been no official statement, no confirmation, no denial, just silence. And sometimes, silence can feel louder than any response. What makes it even more unsettling is that this isn't a completely new story. People have reportedly been talking about these rumors for years, and not just one person but several. The real mystery isn't whether the...
What he was trying to say was, that's what he's done to spend on his clothing line over the last 15 or 20 years, whatever it's been. But it comes out not exactly the right way, and then people get it misconstrued, through the media, and then I
think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time.
Rumors existed. It's why no one seriously looked into them until now. So now, everything seems to be building toward a breaking point. The question is, who will speak first? Will it be the FBI, the Kardashian side, or another survivor ready to come forward? There was also a moment that may seem unrelated but carries weight. Kim Kardashian once admitted she felt overwhelmed while preparing for the bar exam and said she wasn't ready yet. Around that same time, there were claims that someone in prison suggested a hit had been placed on her life. It sounds shocking, but details like these often matter more than they seem.
Good time, or maybe you're a high-profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered. You come to my island. Nothing, what happens on the island stays on the island.
And I think it's so important. The whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, and I have to say, in a way, the American right kind of made this monster, and it's now sort of attacking them, where it became...
Because in situations like this, there is a pattern. When one person comes forward, others often follow. That's not just an assumption. It's exactly what happened the first time the Epstein case began to unfold. That's exactly how it played out with the people around him before. One person finally speaks up, and suddenly, others who were too scared begin to realize they are not alone. So when I say another survivor could already be talking to federal agents right now, that's not exaggeration. It's a pattern we've seen repeat itself again and again in public cases like this. The FBI reportedly has the file, and they are already examining it. And somewhere out there...
became like every person who ever talked to Jeffrey Epstein, who ever met Jeffrey Epstein, somehow had suspicion on them that they were a pedophile or had an interest in...
The Bureau of Prisons is run independently from the FBI, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the judiciary, and who knows where the person's going to go. That's just how it happens.
Right.
So for Ghislaine Maxwell to have been transferred to actually a prison that has very, very minimal security and is just not fit for someone who's been convicted.
Someone else may be sitting with the same decision, whether to stay silent or finally come forward. When it came to Ghislaine Maxwell, the system allegedly worked in a very calculated way. Young girls were brought in, and then pressured or encouraged to recruit others, slowly building a wider network. From a legal point of view, this is where things become complicated. Investigators and prosecutors look at documents, statements, and filings, where some names are revealed while others are hidden. In some cases, they say there isn't enough evidence to charge certain individuals, or only limited proof of involvement. For an average person, that raises more questions than answers. What does limited evidence really mean, and how much is still unknown? And this is the point where the story shifts from a typical celebrity controversy into something far more serious, something the Kardashian family has never truly faced before. Over the years, they've managed to survive almost anything thrown at them: failed relationships, public drama, lawsuits, and constant criticism. Their strength has always been their ability to turn problems into opportunity. Every conflict became a storyline, every scandal turned into content, every uncomfortable moment reshaped and sold to the public. That strategy made them incredibly powerful. But this situation is different. A possible connection to someone like Epstein isn't the kind of issue you can reshape into a narrative or fix with good editing. It's not a breakup, not a social media mistake, not a temporary controversy. It carries a weight that cannot simply be explained away or turned into entertainment. You can't sit down for an interview and smooth it over, and you can't build a dramatic finale around it. The very system that has protected them for nearly 2 decades may not work here, and deep down, they likely understand that. Over the past 15 or 20 years, there have been countless moments where things were said, misunderstood, and then reshaped by the media into something else entirely. Words get twisted, intentions get questioned, and before long, the story takes on a life of its own. And if you look at what's already happened, you can see how quickly narratives can spiral. The rumors linking Kim Kardashian to Jeffrey Epstein have been around for a long time. This isn't about a single random post online. It's about multiple insiders, people who moved in similar social circles, people who claimed to have seen or heard things and quietly shared those details with reporters, friends, or anyone willing to listen. These claims have existed in the background for years. For the most part, the media didn't push them forward, and the family never directly addressed them. But an anonymous survivor reportedly handing over a sealed audio recording to the FBI changes everything. That's no longer just talk, it's the kind of situation that can turn into a federal investigation. Once the FBI steps in, the entire game shifts. You can't manage this with public relations, and you can't get ahead of it with a carefully planned interview or podcast. At that point, all anyone can do is wait, and waiting has never really been the strength of a system built on constant control and quick responses. There's also a darker layer to all of this. Situations like Epstein's operation allegedly worked by offering powerful, wealthy individuals access to things they couldn't easily get elsewhere, all under a sense of secrecy and protection. The idea was simple: what happens in private stays hidden. But now, that illusion is being challenged. Right now, everything seems to be tightening around 3 key pressure points, all moving in different directions. First, the FBI is quietly doing its work, testing the recording to determine if it's real or manipulated. No one knows the answer yet, and that uncertainty is exactly what creates tension. Because if the recording is confirmed to be real, the entire situation shifts instantly from rumor to evidence. Second, there's the Kardashian machine, known for controlling its own narrative but far less effective when the story is out of its hands. And in this case, the control doesn't belong to them, it belongs to federal investigators. Third, there's the possibility of another survivor. If this recording turns out to be genuine, it's very likely that someone else out there knows more. And history shows that once one person speaks, others often follow. So the real question isn't whether more voices exist, it's whether someone else has already decided to come forward. This is the point where the legal side becomes truly frightening for them. In November 2025, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was officially signed into law. This isn't just an idea or a proposal waiting to be approved, it's already in effect, and it requires that all files related to the Epstein investigation be made public. That changes everything. If the FBI confirms that the audio recording is real, releasing it may no longer be a choice. It wouldn't matter how powerful or influential someone is, there would be no easy way to stop it. There's no legal shortcut to bury it, no agreement that can silence it, and no simple way to hide it just because it could damage someone's reputation. The law is clear. The files are meant to come out. And that's what makes this situation so different from any controversy faced before. There's no clear escape route, no way to step around it. The only real hope would be that the recording is proven fake, but even that might not fully fix the damage. Because here's the harsh reality. Long before any official conclusion is reached, public opinion often moves ahead on its own. People don't always wait for confirmed evidence. They react to patterns, to repeated rumors, to things that have been quietly discussed for years. So even if someone is completely innocent, even if the recording turns out to be false, the association alone can still cause serious harm. And for a family that has built an empire based on carefully controlling its image, that kind of damage goes far beyond embarrassment. It threatens the foundation of everything they've built. Brands may start to pull back, business partners may grow cautious, and companies tied to their image may begin to reconsider their involvement. Once that process starts, it becomes very difficult to reverse. At the same time, there are other details that raise even more questions about how the system works. Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, is currently serving time in federal prison. Yet reports suggest she has received treatment that seems very different from what most inmates experience. Access to certain privileges, controlled interactions, and a level of protection that doesn't match the typical prison environment. Other inmates have reportedly been warned not to speak about her or draw attention to her situation. That kind of treatment isn't what people expect from the system. It suggests that influence and power may still be playing a role, even behind bars. And that leads to a deeper question. If the system has shown signs of protecting someone like Maxwell, then what happens in cases involving other high-profile figures? The real issue isn't just what the law says should happen. It's whether the system will fully follow through, or if it will find ways to delay, limit, or control what is eventually revealed. Kim Kardashian has more money, more influence, and far greater visibility than Ghislaine Maxwell ever did. She also has access to top-tier legal teams and a media system that has spent years learning how to manage, reshape, and sometimes bury damaging stories. On paper, the law is clear, but the history of the Epstein case tells a more complicated story. Right now, people are watching closely to see which one will matter more, the law itself or the way power has historically shaped outcomes in high-profile cases. This isn't about wild speculation, it's about patterns that have played out repeatedly over the past 2 decades. The real question is whether this time will be different. Will the Transparency Act actually be enforced the way it's written? Will public pressure grow strong enough that the system can't ignore it? Or will things follow the same path as before, delays, redactions, and powerful individuals quietly moving on while survivors are left without real closure? And then, the situation becomes even more layered. The Kardashian family has, in small ways, already been connected to environments that now raise eyebrows. Years ago, Khloe Kardashian mentioned on their reality show that she attended a party hosted by Sean Diddy Combs where, according to her, many people were naked. At the time, it came across as just another shocking celebrity story meant for entertainment. But now, with everything that has surfaced about Diddy, legal trouble, charges, and conviction, that old clip feels different. It doesn't prove anything on its own, but it adds to a broader pattern. It shows proximity to spaces that are now being examined more seriously, and once people begin to notice those connections, it's hard to ignore them. Meanwhile, the public side of the Kardashian world continues to show moments of vulnerability, conversations about mental health, family pressure, and personal struggles. These moments remind people that behind the image, there are real emotions and real consequences. But even those moments don't change the bigger picture unfolding right now. At this point, everything feels uncertain. The audio file is reportedly in the hands of the FBI, and the process of verifying it is ongoing. No one from Kim Kardashian's side has spoken publicly. Her family has remained silent. Even their media platforms haven't addressed the situation. And in the world of celebrity crisis management, silence often suggests uncertainty. It can mean they don't yet know what's coming or how to respond. So now, all eyes are on what happens next. The law says these files should come out, but past cases suggest that powerful people are often shielded. That tension is what's keeping everyone watching. Something is clearly building, but no one knows exactly how it will unfold. Will the FBI confirm the recording and bring everything into the open? Will the Kardashian team find a way to manage the narrative once again? Or will another voice come forward and change everything before any official conclusion is reached? At the same time, another name quietly enters the picture: Britney Spears. In late 2025, Kim and Khloe reportedly spent time with her, describing it as a simple, friendly gathering. But just a few months later, in early 2026, Britney was arrested for driving under the influence after reports of reckless driving. Her manager publicly called the situation unacceptable and expressed hope that it would lead to meaningful change. On its own, that incident may seem unrelated, but in the middle of everything else happening, it adds another layer of attention and concern. And right now, with so many moving pieces, it's clear that this story is far from over. That's not how you describe a small mistake, that's how you talk about someone who is truly struggling. It sounds like something deeper is going on beneath the surface. And if the Kardashian empire begins to show cracks because of this Epstein-related situation, then Britney Spears could lose some of her most powerful allies at a time when she might need support the most. But the situation becomes even more unusual when you look at it from another angle. What if Britney isn't just caught in the fallout? What if she actually becomes important to the story? She spent time with them, stayed in their home, and was present in moments that were never meant for the public eye. If investigators begin looking for anyone who may have seen or heard something relevant, she could be called in, not as someone accused of anything, but as a witness. That possibility alone changes everything. After spending years fighting to break free from a conservatorship she described as controlling and harmful, she could now find herself in a position where she has to speak under oath about people she recently spent time with. That's not some far-fetched idea. That's simply how investigations tend to unfold when connections exist, even indirect ones. Then another name enters the picture, Robyn Grenell, someone most people have never heard of. In her memoir, Britney described her as a weird lackey, a phrase that raised eyebrows but didn't seem significant at the time. Grenell worked at TriStar, the management firm run by Lou Taylor, a figure Britney has openly accused of mistreating her and benefiting from her situation during the conservatorship. But what makes this more serious is what surfaced later. In a civil lawsuit, a man named Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod, accused Grenell of being involved in handling financial transactions connected to Sean Diddy Combs. That claim alone links her to a much larger and more troubling network. What's even more striking is that TriStar reportedly chose not to respond when these accusations became public, remaining completely silent. When you start putting all of this together, the picture becomes more complex. You have Britney, who has spoken about years of control and silence. You have Lou Taylor and Robyn Grenell, both tied to her past management. You have Grenell named in legal claims involving financial dealings connected to Diddy, who is now facing serious legal consequences. You also have the Kardashians, who have had business ties with TriStar and social connections within similar circles. And then there's Britney again, recently spending time with Kim and Khloe shortly before her own legal trouble. On their own, each of these moments might seem separate, but together, they begin to form a pattern that feels harder to ignore. And right at the center of those connections is Robyn Grenell, a relatively unknown figure who now appears to sit at the intersection of multiple overlapping stories. At the same time, there are still lingering questions about how the system handles people involved in high-profile cases. Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, is currently serving time in federal prison, yet reports suggest she has received treatment that stands out compared to other inmates. Access to certain comforts, controlled conditions, and strict limits on what others can say about her, it all paints a picture that feels very different from the usual reality of prison life. That kind of situation raises difficult questions. If someone like Maxwell can still receive a level of protection or special treatment even after conviction, then it leads people to wonder how the system might handle others with even more influence and visibility. It's not just about what the law says should happen, it's about whether power and connections can shape what actually does happen behind the scenes. She has stronger lawyers, more influence, and a media machine that has spent nearly 20 years learning how to control damage and make problems quietly fade away. But even that might not be the most concerning part. Take the Epstein Files Transparency Act, for example. It was signed into law and is supposed to guarantee that all related files are made public. On paper, it sounds solid, like nothing can be hidden. But reality has played out very differently. Reports suggest that around 25 names connected to the case have been kept protected, never fully revealed. The files haven't come out all at once either. They've been released in pieces. Some information is shared, some is delayed, and some is heavily redacted. Each time, the public is told to be patient and wait a little longer. So the real issue isn't whether the law exists, it's whether it will actually be enforced when it truly matters. If someone like Ghislaine Maxwell is reportedly receiving special treatment even while serving time, it raises a difficult question. What are the chances that someone even more powerful and visible would face full exposure if that audio recording turns out to be real? Yes, the law requires release, but it also allows for redactions. And that single detail changes everything. Because subject to redaction can mean entire sections removed, key names hidden, and important context left out. It creates a situation where information is technically released, but never fully revealed. And as a result, many people feel like they may never get the complete truth. Looking at the timeline only adds to that concern. The law was signed in November 2025, and by December, files started coming out. By early 2026, millions of pages, thousands of videos, and countless images had been released. On the surface, that sounds like transparency. But the most important parts, the names, the connections, the full story of who knew what, still remain unclear. Every time questions are raised, the response is the same. The material is still being reviewed, still being edited, still being handled carefully to protect victims. But that explanation leaves people wondering, is it really about protecting victims, or is it also about protecting powerful individuals who are involved? Then there are the older moments that now feel different in hindsight. Years ago, Khloe Kardashian casually mentioned attending a party hosted by Diddy where many people were naked. At the time, it was treated like a shocking but entertaining story. Now, with everything that has surfaced about him, that same clip feels far more serious. It doesn't prove anything directly, but it adds to a pattern. It shows proximity to environments that are now being questioned in court. And once people begin to see those patterns, they start asking bigger questions. What else happened in those spaces? Who else was present? What was dismissed back then that might matter now? So where does all of this leave things? The audio recording is reportedly with the FBI, and its authenticity is still being tested. The Kardashian family has remained completely silent. But this situation is no longer just about one recording, it's about a much wider network of connections. It involves Britney Spears, who could either be drawn in as a witness or end up affected by everything happening around her. It involves Robin Grenell, whose name links multiple figures in ways that feel difficult to ignore. It involves Ghislaine Maxwell, whose reported treatment in prison raises questions about how the system handles powerful individuals. And it involves a law that promises transparency, but a system that has already shown it can control what is actually revealed. The picture keeps expanding, and with each new layer, the situation becomes more complex. At this point, it doesn't feel like a question of whether something will happen, it feels like a question of timing. Will the FBI complete its investigation and bring everything into the open? Will another person step forward and shift the entire narrative overnight? Will Britney be pulled into the situation whether she wants to be or not? Will Robin Grenell be forced to address the connections tied to her name? Or will the system follow a familiar path, where only part of the truth is revealed and the rest quietly disappears? Right now, no one knows, but it's clear that whatever comes next could change everything. It has often felt like the same pattern repeating: protect the powerful, delay the process, redact the key names, and leave everyone else trying to piece together what was actually in the recording. In the end, every possible outcome feels uncomfortable. Every direction seems to leave someone exposed, and nothing about it feels clean or simple. The only thing that seems clear right now is that something is still developing, even if the full picture is not visible yet. I don't have the answers, and at this point, nobody truly does. But what is clear is that people are watching closely, and time is moving forward whether there is clarity or not. So the question becomes one for the audience as well. Do you believe this time will actually be different? Or will the system behave the same way it always has in high-profile cases? Will figures like Kim Kardashian receive the same kind of protection that critics believe others have received before? And what about Britney Spears? Could she end up being a witness in a larger situation, or is she simply caught in the middle as collateral damage once again?